Hello YouTube, today we're going to be talking about a new hunter that has arrived into the game. It's one of the most expected hunters, the one most people wanted to see added to the game. If you've seen this main story, you've probably heard of him, but not really seen him. If you actually read the manga or the novel, you'll know who he is. It's Thomas Andre, a national level hunter, and it's the owner of the Hunters Guild that the Korean hunter that went to America is a part of. So, what does Thomas Andre do? Thomas Andres is a light type hunter, fighter type, with his signature weapon. There's no need to go to any other weapon since you can obtain all the weapons of the hunters for free during the events. So just go to the event and get the weapon. But what about his skills? First we can see that his skills of defense, so his main stat will be defense percent. There's no reason to go anything else, and it's just a simple 3 stages damage dealing ability, just like every other attack. His core attack deals a decent amount of damage, and it grants a shield equal to 2% of Thomas Andres' defense while using this skill. So the more defense you have, the bigger the shield you'll obtain. It's a simple skill that gives him a shield. Then we have his first basic skill, Absolute Demolition. It deals a decent amount of damage, deals light damage, and it gains a shield while using the skill equal to 2% of Thomas Andres' defense, which is exactly the same as the first basic attack. His second basic skill, same scaling as the first basic skill, and same text, so his two basic skills are exactly the same. So will they change? If is there anything that makes them different? Let's see when we get to the other abilities, but so far the first two skills, every single skill gives him a shield. His special skills, if you're playing as Sung Jin Ho, he deals a decent amount of damage, skills of defense, and when he uses a skill it grants the steel armor effect to the entire team. So when you're playing as Sung Jin Ho, it gives you the steel armor effect. Steel armor effect grants a shield to the... When the user gains a shield, it increases their critical hit rate and critical hit damage by 10%. So increase your crit by 10%, both rate and damage, which is really good. There's not much that increase your crit rate and crit damage, and it also grants a shield equal to 10% of Thomas Andres' defense. So the moment you use Thomas Andres' support ability, you gain a shield and you increase your crit rate and crit damage by 10%. And it scales off his defense, so 10% of Thomas Andres' defense, it's going to be a decently sized shield. His intro skill, when he enters the field, he deals damage, of course, and deals light damage. No special things attached to the entry skill. His ultimate, and this is the juicy part about his kit. This is what we were hoping for and what you wanted from Thomas Andre. If you don't know who he is, at least if you're only following the story of the game, you might not know who he is. He'll be introduced later on, and you only see his form really late into the novel, or the manhwa. So you might not know this form, so if you get him you'll be spoiled, but it's his monarch form, the power of the... It's not monarchs, the angels, I believe it's the power of an angel. I'm not 100% sure now, it was a long time ago that I saw this, but I believe it's the power of an angel, but I might be but correct me if I'm wrong. And but it's the most badass form that he can have, and it's really cool that they implemented it on his ultimate. So basically his ultimate transforms him, and when you use the skill, it activates the Steel Torrent effect. Black Hole Crash. The user gains the power of Black Hole in their fist and strikes the ground, unleashing the gravitational pull. Damage. Really nice damage from this ultimate. Skills of defense, of course. And deals light elemental damage. When the skill hits, it knocks down the target. For every 1000 shield effects applied to the user, the damage of Black Hole Crash increases by 2% to a maximum of 20%. So the more shields you activate, the more his damage increases. So I believe this 1000 shield means that for every 1000 shield you gain at once, you get 2% damage increase, but I could be wrong, but that's how I read it. And it decreases damage up to 20%, so it just has a 20% scaling on the ability. and when you use this skill, it expands all of the shield effects. So you use all your shield to deal damage. And when the user uses the skill, it removes overwhelming power effect. Overwhelming power will be seen later, but it's important. Steel Tyrant, so this is the effect that you gain. The damage of Absolute Demolition, Colossal Crush increased by 100%. These are your two basic skills. This is why the scaling might seem lower than previous skills, but the reason is that you want to deal damage as your ultimate form, so the damage is in the ultimate instead of the skill itself. And when the users use both of the basic skills, they keep the shield effects they gain for 10 seconds. When you use the skill, you gain a shield, and this effect keeps the shield for 10 seconds. He changes the Roller's Judgment, which is the ultimate, to Black Hole Crash, which means that when you use the ultimate, Roller's Judgment, you become a transformed state, increase your skill's basic damage, and it changes the ultimate to Black Hole Crash. When you use Black Hole Crash, as we saw, you deal a ton of damage, and for every shield you have, you increase your damage, and then you deal a massive amount of damage, and you lose the form, I believe. It's also decrease the user's damage taken by 20% and increases defense by 20%. And the user also gains a shield effect equal to 10% of their defense. So when you use the ultimate and you change to Steel Tyrant, your basic skill's damage increases, you gain the shield effects last longer, you change the ultimate to Black Hole Crash, and you also get 20% damage reduction and 20% defense increase. Since you scale off defense on every aspect of your kit, this is really good. And it also gives you a shield equal to 10% of the defense for 25 seconds. So during 25 seconds you're in the Steel Tyrant form. What's his passive? When user uses Absolute Demolition, Colossal Crush, Gigantic Hammer Slam or Volley Crash, it activates overwhelming power effect. Absolute Demolition, Colossal Crush are the basic skills, Gigantic Hammer Slam it's the core attack, and Volley Crash it's the intro skill. They activate overwhelming power effect. He doesn't charge Power Gauge and has no cooldown. Instead, Roller's Judgment becomes available when Overwhelming Power has stacked 5 times, with 36 seconds cooldown. So Overwhelming Power increases your defense by 10% and the user's shield acquisition chance increases by 2%. So he gains even more shield. He can stack up to 5 times, so you can increase your defense by 50%, which is a ton of defense. You can increase your defense by a lot since you scale off defense. It's an amazing passive that he has. It increases damage by a ton. It will be dealing a huge amount of damage, which makes sense since he's a national level hunter. If he wasn't dealing massive amounts of damage, it will be a bit underwhelming. So whenever you use all your basic skills, you do the intro skill and you do the core attack, you gain overwhelming power. And when you reach the 5 stacks, you gain the ultimate to change into Steel Tyrant. When you're in Steel Tyrant, you can gain the ability to use Black Hole Crush that deals a massive amount of damage and increases your basic skills damage. That's basically how the way you use Thomas Andre. About artifacts, as you can see, he scales off defense, so I'm using the Warmonger set. It increases defense by 4% and the force set increases by an additional 3%, stacking up to 8 times, so it's a total of 28% defense scaling. You can also use the usual curse set. It increases damage by 10% with a stacking effect to reach 20%. The force set goes up to 30% and the 8 set effect goes up to 50%. So if you want to use the 8 set effect, of course it's one of the best sets in terms of damage scaling, so you can use it if you have an 8 set good enough for him. Apart from that, it's also the first time you can actually make use of this set, the Guardian set. The user shield effects increase by 30%, so all your shields will be 30% stronger, and whenever you activate a shield, your damage increases by 10% for 10 seconds, so it's quite good on him since you activate a shield a ton. All of your abilities activate shields, so it's a really good set on him, and it's a good option if you don't want to scale on defense. I rather scale on defense, but it's a good set on him as well. Of course, like every other hunter that can crit, the toughness set increases crit rate and crit damage, which is also good and usually the best set. If you don't want to think too much about what to build, just build the toughness and it's good to go. For accessories, I'm using the 4-piece burning curse set. I'm missing. I'm still seeing if I can get a good ring. My light ring isn't the best, so I'm seeing if I can get a better one. But it's basically the curse set. You can use the 4-piece accessory curse for the 30% damage increase. Since he scales off defense, in terms of accessories, it's harder to build him since the choices are more limited. That's why I'm going with the curse. You can also go for Executioner since it doesn't care about your scaling. It just increases your damage when you attack enemies with 70% or less health. So you want to kill enemies, you're going to decrease their damage. Once they reach 70% health, your damage increase effect increases to 60%. So your damage, you will be dealing 60% more damage, which is really good. It's one of the best damage increase sets right now, I believe. It's even more than the curse, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. The curse effect increases by 50% and the executioner increases by 60% when the HP of the enemy is 70% or lower. So in the beginning will deal less damage, but once you reach the 70% mark, you have more damage increase and deal even more damage. Apart from that, you also have outstanding ability. It increases your damage dealt by 60% as well when you have 40% or more MP. So if you're switching a lot, you usually are at 40% or more, so you have always 60% increased damage, which is really good. You also have Berserker, but it's a little harder to use because of your shields. You don't really take damage, so you're not going below 70% HP. So it's kinda useless to go for the Berserker set when you're constantly gaining shields and not really losing HP. If you're only going for light weak bosses with him, you can go for the Sylph's Blessing. It increases your team's elemental weakness damage dealt by 5%, stacking up to 3 times to 15%. So there's a couple good artifacts for him, making it a decent option, but the best artifact set, at least for accessories, scales off attack, so it's useless on him, but they increase the damage on the other accessories to make up for the fact. So right now probably Executioner should be the best one for him, alongside outstanding ability if you don't go below 40%, and if you can get the 8-piece curse, you can always go for the curse set. For stats, it scales off defense, so you want additional defense and defense percent on your main stats, with the ring being, the bracelet I mean, being light damage, and the boots being crit damage. For sub-stats, it's the usual defense percent, defense penetration, with crit rate on the armor stats and crit damage on the accessories. And that's pretty much it for the build. For cores, now that we have cores, you have a couple options. You want defense percent on the main stat and critical hit rates and critical hit damage, but for the passive you want something like this one that increases your basic skill critical hit damage by 12%, which is good on him since you're going to to use his skills after you use his ultimate, so it's good to have damage increase. Or you can also use this passive. This is a really good one on him as well. It's currently on the President, but you can use on Thomas Andre as well. when you use your ultimate, it grants a shield equal to 66% of max HP for 8 seconds. Even though it scales off HP and you don't really stack HP, it grants a shield and you want shields. The more shields you have, the better. So it could be a useful core for Thomas. But I still think the best one will be the critical hit damage increase on your basic skills by 12% for 8 seconds. For teams, you really just pair him with anything that's a breaker if you need a breaker, a buffer if you want to maximize his damage, or just see what you're going against. If you need the weakness advantage, just put Anders of that element into your team and just go wild with Thomas Andre. That's pretty much it for Thomas. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.